Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 59 of the Stomp the Bus Show. I am your host, Mark Harris, coming at you solo for this relatively short episode. Thanks for tuning in. Please like and subscribe on YouTube, rate and review on your podcast app of choice. And everyone knew this game going into Washington was going to be tough, and there's no change to that because ASU will be playing the No.5 Washington Huskies in Seattle at Husky Stadium on Saturday night. They are, last I checked, 28-point underdogs, 28.5-point underdogs. I don't know. I think ASU's been playing better to think that they might cover that spread, but there's a reason Washington is that hefty of a favorite. Penix is on track to win the Heisman, and they just have awesome players everywhere. They have great wide receivers. Their defense is maybe not elite, but it's good. And their offensive line almost never lets Penix get hit. And we saw the running game do pretty well against Oregon last Saturday. So it's going to be a tough game. There's really no ASU fan. This is a game. It's kind of nice. There's no expectations on ASU. Like no one is expecting them to win. You're just hoping, as a fan, what can they do to be competitive? What can they do to have us walking away from the game in a similar light as the USC game, in a similar type of attitude, maybe after the. That's really it, because USC is the only team we've played that's even close to Washington to this point. So it's gonna be a tough game. If I'm an ASU fan, a win is, I'm not expecting that at all. It's gonna be tough. Like there's no other way to put it, especially when you factor in that ASU beat Washington last year. And I've seen some tweets. I've seen some like, oh, Trent Bourget is the last player to beat Washington, and I saw a tweet from someone that's the only quarterback who can beat the Washington Huskies, and it's a picture of Trent Bourget, because they did beat UW last year. I do think it's important to point out that one of the reasons why ASU beat UW last year is because of a pick six that Jordan Clark returned, to his credit, but it was a pick six that just was a Washington's fault. Like Penix threw it, it bounced off one of his linemen's helmets into the air, pick six. That is a pretty fluky play. It's a fluky play. And not only for it to bounce up, but for it to bounce up right where the runner could have caught it and run it into the end zone. It's just, you're not going to see that often. And I don't think I've seen a play like that since that game. So that has to be factored in as to one of the reasons why ASU beat Washington last year. It was also in Tempe. I also believe that Washington had a bunch of injuries in its secondary as well, so that didn't help. I do think this could have been more of a trap game for Washington had ASU not beaten them last year. If ASU had just lost to Washington last year, I do think it's much easier to believe that this could be a trap game for the Huskies, because they just came off this huge emotional win over Oregon. Looking ahead to the USC game they have in a few weeks, and here's ASU, 1-5 team, worst team in the Pac-12, and they trip up. But because Coach Kalen DeBoer can just show Michael Penix, show all the Husky players, hey, remember when we lost to ASU last year? We may be good, but we're not that good, so you guys better bring it on Saturday, yada yada. And that is a tough mixture for the Sun Devils, I gotta say. Like, it's just all the problems ASU has to begin with entering this game, and you add on the fact that UW lost to this team last year, so you mix both of those things in, and it's there's a reason why, again, I've come back to it, there's a reason why no one's really expecting anything from this game for the Sun Devils. So like I said earlier, I'm hoping for a competitive-ish game. a game where Washington clearly has to work for it. So if you look at the other games Washington's played this year against teams at or usually above ASU's level, they beat Boise State 56-19. They beat Tulsa, I want to say like 43-10. And then 41-7 over Michigan State in a game that strangely wasn't even that close. 59-32 over Cal, but they led the game. They led that game over Cal at half. I think they were up 45-12. So, and ASU, we saw ASU play Cal. Those were pretty evenly matched teams. And so when you kind of factor that in, obviously the transitive property in college football doesn't like mean anything. But when you just look at ASU plays Cal on the road, they lose 24-21, look like a fairly evenly matched game. Maybe ASU was even a little better on that day, but they didn't win. And then you see that Washington beat them 45-12 and put up 59 points in the game. And it's like, oh man, like it's just Washington's just at a different level than ASU. And if ASU wins this game by some weird Pac-12, however it would happen, I don't know. It would have to be more because of Washington losing it than ASU actually winning it, if that makes sense. Like ASU isn't winning this game by just going up there and playing well. They're going to need Washington to also play bad and play bad beyond just what the defense is forcing Washington to do. They're going to need like a ball that's like looks like it's going to be caught and just the guy drops it somehow and the ball bounces up and we get a pick because of it. Like everything, missed field goals, dumb turnovers, penalties. Like you're going to need Washington to just play badly in order to win this game. And so that's why I'm just like, you know what? Let's just keep feeding Badger, keep feeding Scatabo, keep feeding Conyers, keep feeding our best players, keeping them engaged in the season. Because, like Ralph mentioned last week, the UCLA game, that is winnable. Sounds a little generous to say, but it is much more winnable than Washington and Oregon that we have on our schedule. And then Wazoo, we saw them get destroyed at home in Pullman by Arizona this last weekend, who Arizona is definitely better than us. That is for sure. Arizona is a pretty good team. So I wouldn't expect ASU to win like that. But my point is, if you keep all of your better offensive players involved, you keep generating pressure on the quarterback and keep getting guys sacks, that will help. That'll keep guys engaged because it's like, okay, like maybe we aren't a good team. We have all these holes in certain position groups, but I am playing well. So I'm going to keep going out there and playing well to further my NFL draft stock, to be in a better position on this team the next year, to be in a better position in the transfer portal after the year. I mean, there's a million reasons beyond, trying to play well just so you can win. Having guys play well for selfish reasons is still them playing well. And I'm not even accusing anyone of being like that on the team. But my point is like keeping these guys involved is just a good thing to do with your team because you don't have that many good players, right? So forcing the ball to Badger isn't the worst thing because he's clearly your best receiver. Giving it to Scatabo, maybe some of the direct snaps are a little not timed the best, but keeping him involved is just so important for the rest of the year when you're trying to win one more game. That's the goal. And I mentioned we're the worst team in the Pac-12. I didn't think that heading into this weekend. I didn't think it at halftime of the Colorado game when Stanford was down 29-0, but that game obviously did not end the way Colorado wanted to. They blew the 29-point lead and lost in double overtime, I believe. So ASU is now the worst team in the Pac-12 because of that. Like, there's no way around it. They need to win one more game to convince people that they aren't. So, Stanford right now, ASU is the only team without a conference win, I believe. I'm not going to look it up, but that does make sense since Cal and Colorado beat ASU. So, there you go. You're just hoping for the word I come back to is competency. I'm just looking for a competent performance. Don't be completely out of the game at halftime. At least maybe hopefully you're down by 10 or something. I don't know. again, this is the ultimate grade on a curve type of game. And I was thinking before the podcast, like if ASU can somehow hold UW to below 30 points, even if it's 39 points, or below 40 points, even if it's 39 points, I'd be totally okay with that. Like that's fine. The only teams that have held them to below 40 were Arizona, and Oregon. And the Arizona game, like if you watch that game, UW moved the ball up and down the field pretty much at will. So, but it still counts. And so that could be the same with ASU, and ASU could lose 38-13. And I don't know how mad I would be at the defense because they held Washington under 40 points. So that's how it is. And we don't know if McMillan will play for Washington after he got a little injured in the Oregon game, but that'll make a difference too, because instead of it's 2 NFL wide receivers you're defending, it's all of a sudden 3 NFL wide receivers you're defending, and that's tough for any team, let alone ASU. All right. I saw some interesting stuff this week that came out today and yesterday about practice. So this is from Chris Cartman. He tweets on October 17th. O-lineman Bram Walden is out, and Joey Ramos is questionable for Washington with new injuries per Kenny Dillingham. Cade Briggs is questionable. Isaiah Glass is back. Dillingham, quote, "We gained 1 and we lost 2." So it's not great. The offensive line, it's just that's the story this year beyond all the off the field stuff. The on the field story of this Sun Devil season is just the offensive line injuries and just how much it is, and just how impressive it is. And Cartman notes the OL injuries are more than any season I can remember. And then you have people in the comments being like, "Oh, are we not practicing right? Is this just bad luck?" I think it's just bad luck. Like, I think sometimes fans, including myself, I think they don't like injuries are just gonna happen in football, and like I just don't know what you want the coaching staff to do. Like, if they're practicing too hard at practice, like maybe, but I just can't see that being the case if they're already so down. Like, you can't afford to lose anyone in practice. And I don't know. I'm just talking through this, but I feel like sometimes it's just no one wants to just go with the simplest answer of that just being bad luck. So sucks. It's affected this season. We would probably have one more win by now if the offensive line injuries were just more at like a normal pace than how much they have been, but it is what it is, and this is where we're at. Also saw another interesting quote. This is yesterday, Monday, Dillingham talking about NIL. And he had some interesting quotes. This is from Brad Denny's Twitter page. Dillingham on ASU's NIL efforts. Quote, "We're very close to turning a corner in the space. NIL is, quote, essential. It's about 80 to 85% of the process now." So that's interesting. The turning the corner phrase is very interesting, especially given what Ralph said in our last episode, which please listen to our last episode. Ralph was incredible on the show. A lot of really good information, a lot of big picture stuff that he really shed some light on. And if you're an ASU fan and you care about the long-term health of the athletics, who's making the important athletic decisions, I recommend you tune into that show, particularly the second half of that show. We really got dug into that a lot. So that was a lot of fun. And it ties back to this because he said that ASU's NIL position was he said not a good spot, is what he said. And when you have Dillingham saying we are very close to turning a corner in the space, that is encouraging. And I don't think he would use the phrase turning a corner if they weren't actually getting close to something, right? I think he just would have talked in more general terms and would have said, "Oh, it's this is an important thing that we have to do, and this is how it is, and yada yada yada, and hopefully the community can help out and this and that." No, but to say we are close to turning a corner, that means in my head we are close to having enough money in the reserves to field a much more competitive team next year. That's what I think that he means. So that's good. And another quote is from Dillingham. Feels Dr. Crow is supportive of ASU's NIL work and understands the importance of it. This is also big. Could this mean, I don't know. I'm not going to read into any more of that statement, but just from where Michael Crow used to be on NIL to where he purportedly is now and how Dillingham thinks that he feels about it, that seems to be a step in the right direction. So who knows? But I do like the encouraging comments from Dillingham about NIL, because that is the key. Like, it's in the back of your head as an ASU fan, it's like, okay, this could be the thing that really holds us back. Like, beyond anything else, like, if in this day and age, in 2023, 2024 college sports, you have to have competitive NIL backing. You don't need to be number one. You don't need to be A&M. You don't need to be, whomever it may be. You don't need to be you don't need to be Oregon. I get it. But you can't be like where ASU was, and where it might be to this right now. But when you have the head coach saying we are very close to turning a corner in the space, again, that is general talk, but it also indicates that something positive is happening, or very well could happen, when you use the phrase turning the corner. So that's good. I don't have any, insider information or anything else to add to that, but I do think the way he phrased it is interesting. That's what I'll leave with that. Yeah, so not a whole lot else. It's, the injuries are just unfortunate. It's weird. I don't know what to expect from, like, because it's very easy as an ASU fan to just be like, oh, we're just going to get blown out and that'll be that. But it's weird. They've looked competent in their last 3 games, but the 3 teams they played, USC just got blown out and should have lost to Arizona the week before. Cal hasn't looked good since that game, and Colorado hasn't looked good since that game, just losing to Stanford at home. So that makes me less encouraged about, their competitiveness against Washington. But I just hope no injuries. This is a game, even if, like me, Colton, a lot of people who had much more positive expectations for this team entering the season, nobody thought they were winning this Washington game. Okay. So if they do get blown out, it doesn't change anything that I think about the program. Like, getting blown out, had they gotten blown out by USC in the Pac-12 opener, that would have been a lot worse, because you were at home, because you had just gotten blown out the week before by Fresno State. And it just would have been they needed a competitive game against them, in a game where USC really had to work for it. It was a close game. They needed that type of game at that point in the season to just be like, hey, like, maybe we're not, we're not a good team, but we're going to show up and compete every game. And that's what I want to see against Washington. So, but that said, I also expect I still, like, if they lose by 21 points, that's just, that's how it's going to be. Like, Washington is loaded. So, all right. I think I touched on all the important football stuff. Colton can't join us today, but I'm going to wrap this up anyway. So not too much that we'll miss, just coming off a bye. Yeah, just scrolling Twitter. Looks like they're still mostly pretty injured. So not great, but yeah, well, good thing other ASU sports have gotten off to good starts to the season. I'm going to start with volleyball. They had been undefeated for a bit. They've dropped to 18-2, which is still awesome. They didn't lose any dumb matches in the non-conference. And then in Pac-12 play, Their only losses, they lost on the road to number 3 Stanford at the end of September. No big deal. This past weekend, they lost at Oregon State, but then beat number 5 Oregon in Eugene, and now they're 18-2. Just an incredible season for ASU volleyball. You know, it's they had a lot of turnover there, and it had really been a while since they had been successful. I mean, I feel like it was when I was in college or maybe just after that, but new head coach JJ Van Neal, he's done a great job. So I just wanted to shout them out. It's like at this point, like with ASU, with how it's been, like this is just really impressive to see. So good job to Sun Devil Volleyball and to head coach JJ Van Neal. They've done a good job. ASU hockey off to a 2-0 start, 2 wins over Merrimack over the weekend, and they find themselves ranked at, I think they were number 18. The thing with hockey is there's not like one poll, there's like multiple polls, but they were ranked number 18th in the USCHO poll, which I think is the main one, and that's good. Yeah, they're ranked number 19th in US hockey. So whatever, it's a different service, but it's kind of like how college baseball, there's different ranking systems. But I, say all that to say, like, it's good start to the season. Not only that, like, clearly they're getting some respect from whatever the national college hockey media is, to be ranked, just, winning 2 games. I'm sure they're not the only team to have won 2 games, in college hockey over the weekend, but they did. And because of that, they're now ranked 18th, 19th in the poll, and that's a good start. And I think we mentioned on some shows earlier, they got some high-level recruits for hockey, so some good stuff. And then an interesting little nugget of news was ASU men's basketball getting a new player. They got this guy. He's a 6th-year college basketball player. I think he's on like his 5th team. He was on West Virginia last year, but he wasn't able to, for whatever, some eligibility thing, wasn't able to play. He had played at Manhattan, University of Manhattan, a few years ago, and averaged like 18 points. His name's Jose Perez, another guard, and yeah, first team all MAAC honors in the 21-22 season, where he averaged 18.9 points per game, 4.5 assists in 29 of the 30 games they played. So looks like a good off the bench guy, another good ball handler and some veteran experience. I'll take it, man. I'll take it. And he seemed like he really liked visiting ASU and could vibe with Coach Shirley pretty well. So some good stuff. Yeah. So just, I guess I have to do a score prediction for UW. I said I'd be happy if they hold them to under 40 points. I don't know if they do. I'm going to go Washington 45, Arizona State 17. I think the offense will have some moments in this game, but ultimately UW's pass rush is pretty decent, and that's going to be a problem for offensive line. And then maybe ASU will be able to limit the big plays that Washington tends to get in the passing game. But just because you limit the big plays, Penix can still kill you underneath. And ASU's rushing defense hasn't been particularly great this season to begin with. So when you factor that in, I'm hoping for like 2 punts. That would be, if we can force them to punt like twice, I would be happy with that. So I'll say ASU loses 45-17, but continues to look somewhat competent, if that makes sense. I don't know, this might be a game where that doesn't happen though. So I don't, maybe you can't really look somewhat competent if you lose 45-17, but maybe it's, I don't know, if they're down like 31-13, and yeah, there's no way that's probably going to happen. So maybe ASU makes it close and they lose like 31-24 or something. And then that would be really impressive. And that would actually be a really good sign for the future. But if they get blown out, I pretty much think of this team the same way I do right now. So, all right. Thank you for listening. Again, please like and subscribe, rate and review. And as always, go Devils.